Hi, my name is Samantha Kohler, and today I'll be reflecting upon my semester spent in AEC 3030C, Effective Oral Communication. So, I feel that my speaking skills have definitely changed a lot throughout the course of this semester. While it might not seem that way to people who have never heard me speak before, I think that I've definitely become more confident when it comes to my overall speech delivery. So I tend to speak fast even when it's just normal everyday conversations, and so when I get nervous, it just increases it to an almost incomprehensible rate. It just makes it very hard to understand me. Add to this the fact that I also tend to speak very softly, and this just makes a very big problem when it comes to giving speeches. So kind of try to counteract this problem that I tended to have once I realized after I gave my first speech, I just tried to consciously speak more clearly, louder, and just as well as less fast throughout my speeches to try to make that better. I was also able to cut down on my filler words with each speech that I did give, as well as developing a more even tone that was less robotic sounding as the speeches went on. And then overall, I think I was also able to improve my speech delivery by using things that I learned in class, such as eye contact, use of professional language, smiling, enthusiasm, and nonverbal communication. Overall, I learned that it is super important to maintain audience engagement, as a bored audience isn't a very good audience. I also think that my fears changed a lot throughout the course of the semester, and by changed, I really mean that most of them did decrease. My main fear coming in this class was actually, weirdly enough, the length of the presentations. Throughout high school and the majority of college classes, I haven't really had to give that many presentations, but the ones I did do were, if I'm going to be honest, mainly just me reading off a PowerPoint for no more than 3 or 4 minutes. And so the thought of actually giving a major speech from 7 to 12 minutes all by myself really kind of freaked me out. Especially when it came to the persuasive speech, where I wouldn't have any words or any type of cues to remind me except for pictures. This seems kind of funny now because I realized that a good speech really does need that length of time in order for it to be a well thought out and delivered speech. And I think that's 7 to 12 minutes is a perfect amount of time to give a speech, because if it's too long, then your audience is going to get bored with their speech, but if it's too short, you're not going to be able to tell everything that they're wanting to say. So I found that as I was doing my speeches, it really was a perfect amount of time for me to do it, as long as I spoke at a pretty fast pace, but also enough for them to understand me. Also going in this class, embarrassing enough to admit, I was kind of terrified going in. I kind of, for some reason, imagined myself just speaking in front of a whole big class of 200 people. So I really like how the class is set up with labs, and how we could just speak in front of about 15 people in our labs made it a lot less nerve-wracking for me. And so on that note, public speaking does still kind of generate a level of anxiety with me, and I kind of think it always will. I don't really think it's going to be something I can get over. It's just part of my personality to not be very comfortable when it comes to public speaking. But when saying that, I really do think it also has decreased throughout the class. So at the beginning of the class, while I wasn't at the level where I would pass out or break down crying at the thought of public speaking, I was definitely nowhere near comfortable with the idea of it either. So when I was giving my informative speech, that was my first big one of the semester, and even though I was really passionate about the subject I was talking about, I was terrified, and you could tell. I was speaking incredibly fast. I could hear my voice shaking, the audience could hear my voice shaking, and I was told that I started to turn red too, so take that with what you will. And then when it came to my persuasive speech, my anxiety went down a little bit, and I think the audience couldn't tell that I was as nervous, which I think it was still as nervous, so I was able to hide it more. But it wasn't until my team speech that really allowed me to become more comfortable with giving speeches, and it actually allowed me to even kind of enjoy it for the most part, which to me I thought that was never going to happen when it came to giving speeches. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I didn't have to know everything I was talking about because it was a team speech, and also just kind of the humor of it that we were trying to do, and it just didn't seem as serious because we were selling our own stuff. Because we're selling our own stuff, I don't think I also needed to know my facts as much, because since we made up our own facts and citations, I could just make something up if I did forget it, and it wouldn't be a big deal. I think at the beginning of the semester I would consider myself a beginner speaker, and now I think I've moved my way up to novice. I know a lot more now about how to effectively give a good speech than I did at the beginning of the semester, but I also have to practice it a bunch before I feel comfortable with delivering it. And I know a lot of kids don't have to do that when they take this class, and they're comfortable just winging things, and I can't do that. I think this is kind of a problem because if I practice it too much, my speeches tend to kind of sound rehearsed, and it tend to sound robotic, and it doesn't really sound good. I think that my public speaking ability has definitely improved, so that would be considered a positive for me. But I also know that, like everything else in life, there's also room for improvement. So I'm going to say both when it comes to if I change in positive or needs more improvement fashion. The only way for me to improve, of course, is for me to keep practicing my public speaking skills so that each time I do, I can become more and more comfortable with giving speeches. So I place a huge amount of value on good public speaking skills, and I feel like the rest of society does as well. I knew this coming into class, and so taking this class has only increased those opinions that I've held about that subject. Having the ability to speak articulately in public makes you more confident in yourself, as well as more confident in your ability to interact with others. Pretty much everyone at some point in life is going to have to engage in public speaking, and not many people are comfortable with it. So I think those that are good at it are going to stand out and have a better chance of getting jobs and just type of things like that. And so it's really helpful to have these skills. I'm really grateful that I took this class this semester, as I think I've learned a lot. Additionally, I think that this is one of the only classes I've taken here at UF that lets me kind of apply what I've learned to the real world. So for that, I am extremely thankful.